Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Saturday night edition of LFC Transfer Room. The boys are back, not just us three, but we have a couple of returning superstars on their way back to Merseyside as well. We'll explore that, plus some centre-back candidates moving forwards and a potential midfielder as well. All that and more on the Saturday night stream. It's the international break. We were just moaning that football isn't really football in the international break. I watched my local team today, Peterborough United, a lad who goes to the school that I taught at. He scored and I was really happy. And then we conceded 3 goals in 10 minutes. So you can't even get any joy from the posh these days. Dylan, how are you? You okay?
Yeah, not bad, mate. I had that game on earlier on as well, just because it's the international break. So it was actually a decent game, to be fair. But no, it's, yeah, like you say, international break, you kind of just want the Premier League back in between, and it just feels like a kind of long Saturday and Sunday until it's back again.
I know, it's quite bad, really, isn't it, that we have nothing else in our lives apart from football. It was a great game. Listen, it finished 3-3, and there's worse games to be watching in the international break. You could have watched England the other night. Matt, how are you doing? It's your first ever stream, so welcome to LFC Transfer Room.
It is, yeah. Thank you for the welcome. I didn't spend my afternoon watching the Peterborough game. I didn't even know it was on. I was completely zoned out from football when it's international, so. Yeah, I was just chilling out all day because long week of work, you see. So,
yeah, bit of R&R. It's much needed after a long break. Talking about R&R, Virgil van Dijk, Mo Salah and Curtis Jones will return early from their stints of international duty due to various reasons. Virgil obviously picked up that red. Mo Salah is on a 3G pitch that could cause injury, and Curtis Jones has come back for personal reasons. So none of them are injury related, and that's a big positive, because seeing Virgil back and Mohamed Salah protecting those two players, and obviously whilst Jones is back as well, I wish him and his family all the very, very best indeed. But they're two massive names, including Jones, Dylan, to bring back before that Chelsea game. How big of a week and a boost is that really going to be for Liverpool?
Yeah, I think it is, especially with the kind of run of fixtures we've got coming up. To have even a few days of recuperation is probably a little bit of a bonus to them all. Probably from the players' perspective, they probably think they prefer to be still in a rhythm and playing. But from our kind of perspective, it just feels good for them to know they're having a couple more days rest and get back and kind of get in the zone for the Chelsea game coming up. So yeah, I think it's positive for us, but maybe from the players' point of view, they probably want to play and keep that rhythm going. But with the fixtures we've come in, even a couple of days bonus, I think, is good for us.
Yeah, absolutely. They're going to come absolutely thick and fast, and I've never seen a fixture run like it, really, with the likes of Arsenal and Madrid in there too, and Leverkusen. So Matt, I mean, how big of a boost is it? I suppose that Mohamed Salah very sensibly has not been risked, because we know Egypt do like to play him as often as they can, but this 3G pitch debacle is a bit of a blessing in disguise, not just because it's a 3D pitch, but the fact that he could have a couple of days training. And again, like going on what Dylan said, do you think that, I know players, especially when, Salah and Van Dijk, when they get to, the twilight of their careers, let's be kind to them, they want to keep on playing football. I always think, after a long break, Liverpool come back and we always look a bit rusty. Do you think the rest is going to do them good, or would you rather see them play and then come back as planned?
No, for me, I think it's really important to keep them rested. That they are getting on. They are in the 30s. So I think coming back a bit earlier, rather than potentially risking that extra 90 minutes, that extra ligament injury, extra knee injury, the extra ankle injury, whatever it may be, I think it would be a bit more of an easy thing for us to have them back a bit sooner, especially with the 3G pitch, because, well, who knows what could happen there, but just a bit more. Well, they're not as good as an actual proper grass pitch. Let's be true. But yeah, no, I think it's a massive thing for us to have them back, especially with Chelsea going up, because they've been in relatively good form this season. They're no thing to sniff at, even though we all probably thought them as the mid-table mandems going into the season. But yeah, no, they're nothing to be sniffed at. I think it's good to have them definitely fully fit and recovered, ready to start the match against Chelsea.
Yeah, and we're certainly going to need Van Dijk, I think, against Chelsea. They have been in good form. Jackson has been in good form. He was a little bit of a laughing stock when he first came in, but he has been hitting the numbers recently. And Cole Palmer is just a sensational footballer, I think. Gravenberch and McAllister also, not playing international. They're going to really have their work cut out, Dylan, going up against Cole Palmer, because he's been nothing short of sensational this season.
Yeah. I think if we can have Grav playing a good game against in that kind of sit and roll and almost cut off the lines in between Cole Palmer and, like you say, Jackson, even though he's probably not the best finisher, when he's got Cole Palmer to feed him, probably 5 or 10 chances a game. Eventually, one's probably going to go in. So if we can cut off the kind of supply from Palmer and keep him quiet, I think we should be okay in terms of the game against Chelsea. I think they do have attacking abilities, but if we can cut that off and keep our defence as solid as it has been so far at the start of the season, I think that's good for us as long as we can almost keep Cole Palmer quiet in those kind of gaps. And I think the rest of the attack kind of really relies on Cole Palmer having a good game against us. So I think it cut that supply and we should be fine, I think.
Matt, with Salah then having a bit of a rest, we know Cucurella is not going to be in that left back position. It might be that Colwell switches over to the left hand side. It might be, again, it looks like Chilwell was completely frozen out. It might be a different left back going up against Salah. So again, those rested legs, he's really going to test whoever it is at left back, especially if it is Colwell, because you would probably expect him to play again for England in the next fixture for them as well. So, you know, that rest, will it help someone like Mo? I always think that Mo does need to have a bit of rhythm and a bit of momentum. He did play for Egypt, obviously, the other night, so it's not a full, you know, international break rest, but he's always likes a goal against Chelsea. He is a big game player, Mohamed Salah, and I do think that something magical might happen at Anfield against his former team.
It does tend to. The magic does tend to come from this. But I can't do anything but think about that screamer he scored however many years ago. The one where it's like the camera and it just went beeline in the right direction from the camera. That was excellent. But yeah, no, I think yeah, the rest will do him good in terms of the fitness levels. But I feel like the rhythm is what you say. It's very important. But I think having that one match in between rather than a complete rest over the international break is better. For that, but I think regarding Chelsea's defence and whoever it may be going into that fullback position, I think whoever it is will be probably performing better on a confidence level, so they probably be better with the rhythm of games if it's not Cucurella going to be playing. But however, I could also highly envision the fact that you get this random one game with someone of a lower pedigree playing at left back and they just boss it, and it's really frustrating to see. But yeah, again, it's completely down to Chelsea's confidence, I think, and that player's confidence in particular on the day. But if they come up against Salah and we get an early goal and he does a 1-on-1 quite quickly in the game, then I think it could be a long game for him, the fullback.
Salah has 10 goals and assists for those who's counting against Chelsea. So hopefully he'll add a couple more to that list. Now, Court Offside have indicated that Loïc, Bade and Gonçalo Inacio, he's always in and amongst the mix for the past couple of years, Inacio, are among the candidates for Liverpool as they look to strengthen the centre-back position. Now, Inacio is a player who's been bandied around quite a lot, and he had that release clause last summer. He signed a new contract with a different release clause. Do you think, you know, our Court Offside banging on a closed door, Dylan, when it comes to Gonçalo Inacio, or do you think that their constant rumours are because there's actual legs and smoke there?
I think with the partnership we've got at the moment, I think it's hard to even consider. But I think the ones around them, I think after that period with Virgil and Konaté, once you kind of have outside of the two, like who then plays alongside either of them. So I think that's kind of why the rumours keep coming up, because is there their third and fourth kind of people to kind of step in when we need to for rotation. But I think in terms of Inacio, I was looking forward to kind of seeing him during the summer for Portugal to kind of see what he was actually about fully, because you only see him in kind of parts for Sporting Lisbon. But then, of course, he didn't play a lot of the Euros. He was kind of second and third choice in that instance as well. So I can see why the rumours do keep coming up in terms of our rotation of centre-halves, but in terms of kind of ability-wise, I haven't seen enough of him in terms of like Champions League football and international football to kind of see the levels that he could potentially go to. And I know he's only young. I think, what is he, 23? I think he is, and Bade 24. So they're all similar kind of profiles in terms of the player we'd usually kind of go for. Again, which could be the reasons why the rumours tend to come up, because of the kind of profile we normally go for in player. But yeah, I can't really see if that would happen, depending on the price, if it was worth it as a kind of third or fourth choice behind Ibu and Virgil as kind of the first two.
Yeah, I think it's certainly one for the future. And, you know, given Inacio's age, he plays on the left-hand side of a back three. So maybe, you know, thinking about Robertson and Tsimikas replacements there as well. Now, I know we don't play a back three, but, you know, Inacio can play on that left-hand side. So maybe it's a bit of cover there. Let's have a look at Loïc Bade, because obviously he plays for Seville. He is a centre-back and he is 24, you are right. He's actually from the Le Havre Academy. Anybody remember the last two players who signed for Le Havre, from Le Havre? Anyone?
Shayru?
They were both at the same time as well.
No, I don't know.
Anthony Letalak and Florent Cinema Pongol. So
cool.
yeah,
Wow,
he's obviously in very good company that he's in there if he does arrive. He actually played for Nottingham Forest. Did you know that as well? On loan, he went to Nottingham Forest.
It was a loan period a few years ago, wasn't it?
Yeah, played all of 0 Premier League games, and that was in 2022-23. But he did go to Sevilla on loan from Rennes, and he did make 19 appearances, and then he has made since 2023 35 appearances. He is a French under-21 international as well. Matt, is this a player that you know well? Is it a player that you've seen perhaps in La Liga?
Honestly, no. I mean, I think I maybe packed him on FIFA a few times, but I've probably I've literally got his Google page up, just looking at him now. He does seem okay. He's been playing for the French under-21s, and I think he played the other day against Israel when France won 4-1. So only conceding 1 goal against Israel. I guess that's not too bad, but it is Israel, so you probably wouldn't expect him to score against France anyway. But he's pretty tall, so he's not too short, so he should be good as a potential aerial threat if we were to go after him. But yeah, no, I think. Did you say he's been on loan at Nottingham Forest?
He played 0 games, so sort of on loan, but he was there, but he didn't play.
But he's been integrated with an English team, so that should help potentially with a culture of understanding English culture. Even though Liverpool is different to English culture, I know, but it's a step in the right direction. Whereas I know when Darwin came in, like he was completely Spanish and his Portuguese heritage playing in Portugal for Benfica, so it took him a while to get that and start to understand things. Whereas with this experience in Nottingham Forest, with the English surrounding, it might potentially help a little bit if he was to sign. Possibly.
He only stayed at Forest until January. They terminated his contract, which doesn't bode well. But what does bode well is that when he did go on loan to Sevilla, he has scored a goal against Manchester United in the Europa League when they battered them 3-0. So he's on to a winner already. Listen, we love everyone who scores against Manchester United. I say bring him in right now. Dylan, any light to shine?
He had a quite good Olympics, to be fair to him. I've watched bits and pieces of the Olympics, and he obviously finished silver medal with France. But I think the Argentina game in particular in the Olympics, he was probably one of his better performances during the tournament. But again, the Olympics is kind of hard to kind of gauge in terms of level again, because it's under 21s, under 23s, so it's kind of hard to kind of put him within that bracket. But for what he is for his age, I think again, relatively young kind of profile would be after. So it depends whether it would be a necessary kind of thing, but I think he would be even further down the list behind potentially people like Inacio and maybe a couple of others. So I don't see it potentially materialising into much from there, but we'll see.
Yeah, and I mean that is from Court Offside, they're not the most reputable of sources. No offense if Court Offside are listening, but they don't get too many right. Speaking about centre-backs then, one Jadel Quansah has signed a new deal at Liverpool. I looked on Capology earlier, and I think it goes up to about £30,000 a week on a new 4-year deal, which is around about $6.5 million over the 4 deals, which is very, very good, you know, for a youngster. Let's say he should probably stay off his phone, or whoever he's texting should stop screen sharing. That's as far as we'll go with that. But apart from Quansah coming through, you've obviously got Joe Gomez as well. So Liverpool do have 4 quality centre-backs. Now, Gomez hasn't played too often this season, mainly because of the form and fitness, touch wood, of Ibou Konate and Virgil van Dijk. And that, for me, is the best centre-back pairing in the league. I know that you got Gabriel and Saliba, but for me, you know, it's those two head and shoulders above the rest. Shout out to Maguire and Evans. But it is going to be difficult for whoever Liverpool sign, Matt, to actually get ahead of those, and it has to be a signing. It's almost like, you know, that right wing position that now Fede Chiesa's come in. You need someone who is not happy to sit on the bench, but willing to sit on the bench and wait for their turn.
Yeah. I think you pretty much got that bob on there, and I think if we are going to sign a player that is going to just go straight to the starting 11, they have to be a seriously special talent. Now, I don't think there are too many available in budget options that would even do that with the current form and fitness of the current player we've got. But I know there were lots of links with Gomez potentially to move on in the summer. I know Newcastle were linked at one point. So obviously that's still a bit of a question mark because now we've gone out of the transfer window. But I think if Gomez leaves, then I think someone, as you say, who will be willing to sit on a bench and fight and earn their place will definitely be someone that we can look out to sign. But there are those two names that have been mentioned that Caught Offside have said. But I'm sure we'll have other names come here and go. And if we are to sign someone, it'll probably be someone we've never heard of or something. I don't know exactly, but yeah, no, I think it will be a definite fighter. I know Endo said something recently about knowing that he's not a natural first choice, but he's willing to put a shift in when he does get selected and the minutes he's had to help the team achieve the most success they can this season, which is the kind of attitude that we would need this mystery centre back to be.
Yeah, and Endo he's had a phenomenal job when he's come on. I've always been impressed when he's come on. He just gives absolutely everything, and yeah, you do need a player like that. I think a youngster perhaps would be more likely, because I know Quansah didn't have the best 45 minutes against Ipswich, but he has looked very solid, I think, ever since then, and obviously before then as well, Dylan. Any again, we're trying to be realistic, so you know, we can't have, I think, shouts of you know, the world's best centre backs to come in. But is there anyone on your radar, Dylan and Matt? I'm coming to you afterwards, who you would like to see Liverpool bring in as a centre back, a realistic centre back option? And everyone else in the chat as well, please put your ideal and realistic centre backs in as well. So you can't say like a William Saliba, because obviously he's well tied up with Arsenal.
Well, I think for me, I would kind of like, after the two we've already got, I'm kind of already happy with what we have in terms of if we could get Joe Gomez to kind of stay and have a longer period. I think other than his injuries over the last few years, which has kind of been his downfall in terms of missing out of being able to hold down a first team place the whole time. But when you look back at the 19-20 season and 18-19, even the season before in the Champions League, if we had that kind of form from him over a long period of time, I don't think there would be a question of whether we'd potentially have anyone else in the future alongside Ibu and Virgil. I think it's kind of always been his injuries that have been the downfall. One I would kind of say is, again, you kind of mentioned other teams that potentially wouldn't be realistic from, but it depends in the next couple of years if, because obviously Saudi were in for him during this year and potentially other kind of choices around him, but even someone like an Akanji from City, and I know it's unrealistic to say we're probably going to sign someone from City, but he's not always the first choice. Sometimes he's shifted out to the left, so it could be if there was a first choice position there as a centre half. I think so. He's someone who's always comfortable on the ball, gets up in terms of like supporting in terms of midfield when needed, can cover in other positions when necessary. I think if he was to kind of go down the pecking order, it could be a good kind of thing further down the line, but I don't think it's a realistic one. But in my head, I don't really think there is a realistic one after our kind of first choices at this moment in time.
Yeah, a lot of it, I think, will have to depend on Gomez actually going. And that deal was basically done, wasn't it? Because of Newcastle's situation with PSR, but they ended up selling Minter instead, which is why Gordon ended up staying there, and Gomez obviously staying at Liverpool as well. Matt?
I mean, for me, I've just been having a look at the profile of, is it Alessandro Bastoni for Inter Milan? I know it's a little bit more on the pricier side, but I feel like he's got another great ceiling. He's established in the international team at the top level. He's won a few league titles with Inter Milan now, and he's been described recently as good as Van Dijk. So that would be fantastic for the future. But again, I don't know how realistic. But I know there was, again, links with Mark Gahey from Crystal Palace. I know that was very hit and miss with people's opinions on that, but I personally rate him. I think he would do a solid job, but he'd need to understand again about the fighting role for the position. Obviously, if Ibu or Virgil were to leave, probably more likely Virgil at the weight with this contract situation, then I think he would be a good fit to have a nice pre-season, figure out the system, and then potentially kick on from there.
I like the idea of there's been a few in here as well, so I've highlighted them all. I do like the idea of Gahey, but I don't like the idea of paying 70 million, which is why I didn't go to Newcastle. You know, if Newcastle and the Saudis are saying that's a bit too steep, I should think off the back of a good Euros, which it was, you know, I think that price would have to come down 15 million. I'd happily pay 55. He's young, he's English, he's proven. But yeah, I think 70 million might be a bit too steep. But yeah, I mean, I would love to see Jared Brumthwaite in a Liverpool shirt. I've said it for a couple of seasons. He broke through obviously last season. Injuries now are a little bit of an issue. And you might think it's unrealistic because he wouldn't move from Everton, but of course he would. Everybody would move from Everton, you know? So let's keep that door open for me. Record Portugal have indicated that Liverpool are looking to sign Benfica midfielder Orkun Kökçü, who is 23 years old, when the opportunity presents itself. Now, this is a player who Arne Slot managed as Feyenoord manager, so he's allegedly the driving force. So yeah, Kökçü is a player who Slot is familiar with. Dylan, are you familiar with him at all? Benfica just seem to churn out midfielders, don't they? They had João Neves as well before. They've just sold off on massive profits as well. Benfica are just an absolute breeding ground for talent, or nurturing talent and making them better, let's say. But yeah, anything about Kökçü?
Yeah, I think Kökçü, when he was at Feyenoord, I think Slot actually made him captain and made him his captain during that title-winning season with Feyenoord. And he actually played him as a more of a deep lying midfielder almost at times for Feyenoord, whereas I think for Benfica and even for Turkey, he plays a little bit further up and sometimes even off the left. I think he's one of those that could fit the profile of player we're looking for, relatively young. I don't think, though, the price is going to be, I think it could be a sticking point in terms of it, because I think Benfica signed him for, I think it was 30 odd million euro or something like that at the time. And I think they've got something like 100+ million release clause on him. So again, if we were in last season when we had those kind of rumours of midfielders for 100 odd million and we weren't willing to step in, then I can't see that happening in terms of 100 million plus if it was to be a release clause like that. So I think it would very much depend on the price. But in terms of the profile of player, again, I think he's someone who could work for us. He is an energetic midfielder, can get on the ball, can support the attack, and like he saw with Slot, he can play in that deep line role the way he did. But equally, it's then what would happen to Grav in that kind of role? Would he push further forward? Would Endo be kind of moved out then from that kind of position? So it depends really on how it would work within the squad. But I think it could be a promising one, but I think the price would kind of have to be right in order to be considered.
I think Benfica drive a hard bargain. We saw it with Darwin. You know, they're not going to let their players go on a cheap, and they don't need to. You know, they're not a club who's in dire straits financially. Actually, they're very, very well run. And yeah, they would certainly want, you know, for the 23-year-old, they would certainly want a decent upfront fee. Matt, thoughts on Kökçü?
I really rate the guy. I paid a little bit more attention to him when he was playing for Feyenoord than during Benfica. But I know he was grinding out a lot of goals and assists when he was playing for Feyenoord, and he was one of the best players, not just for Feyenoord that season, but in the entirety of the Eredivisie. And so much so that Benfica then went sniffing around. They got hold of him, and now they will drive a hard bargain to shift him onto somewhere else, especially if someone like Liverpool, such a high-profile club, do come sniffing. But yeah, it's according to Transfer Market, he had 175 appearances for Feyenoord with 32 goals and 27 assists. Now, for a centre midfielder, that's nothing to sniff at. That's solid, and he is so young as well. Obviously, he came through the Feyenoord academy, doing the under 17s, under 19s, and the likes. And so obviously we'll have had younger years there before he properly kicked on and started getting more first team appearances. But still, that's a total of 59 goal contributions in 175 games, which again from midfield is nothing to be sniffed at. It's very good.
He started this season well as well. You know, he's got 4 goals and 3 assists in 9 appearances, and that's in the Champions League including as well. 2 goals, 2 games in the Champions League. So he does fit that type of, you know, it is almost like a Gravenberch. And imagine having 2 of them in there. It would be nothing short of sensational. And then Matt could play a little bit further up, perhaps support, you know, Mack and Szoboszlai rotating with Elliott playing in there too. And for Liverpool, it's not necessarily, I don't think that we don't need a DM anymore. Who would have thought we said that for over the past 3 years? But it feels like we just need more numbers, more quality numbers. I think that's what it feels like. We don't actually feel like we need a sitting six anymore because we've evolved and we've moved on from that. I mean, you've almost got 2, 6, 8, 10s, and then an actual 10 into Bosley or Elliott when he comes back. Again, I asked about the centre-back position. I don't think there's any doubt that Liverpool need to reinforce in midfield, and that's why we tried to get Zubomendi in. Dylan, is there anyone out there, again, realistically, who you would like to see in January Liverpool have a go at coming in? Is it Zubomendi again? Is it a Kökçü? We know that the money's there because we haven't spent it. So who is it that you'd like to bring in? And then, Matt, I'll come to you as well.
Yeah, I think money-wise, I don't think the money is going to be there for someone like a Kökçü if they're gonna push that price further up, like the rooms are saying, somewhere close to 100 million. I don't think that's going to be realistic. So I think if it's there again, I think the Zubomendi type of deal, if we were going to have a type of midfielder we were after, just because, like you said, in some games we might not need that six, but when we play games, when we're on the ball and we're going to be dominating the ball and breaking against teams and stuff, we may not need that number 6 in there. But when we're playing other teams, we do. I think we still need that backup kind of option. I know I think Endo can do that role as well. I think in terms of the minutes he's getting, maybe he's not going to be in the team as much. So I think somebody who is able to do that and still be able to play maybe in a double pivot or as a 6 behind potentially, I think someone like Zubomendi still does fit that bill. So I think if that's the case in January, I think then potentially go back in for him again. It's
looking more and more likely because as the days go on, he's not signing this new contract that he was promised with all of the mountains involved. It feels like we're getting closer and closer to him actually leaving, funnily enough, when we thought he was going to be absolutely staying, because it looks like all those promises that Sociedad have made are not coming to fruition as of yet. Matt, what are your thoughts then in this centre midfield role?
You go into the Zubomendi thing that you were just saying. I think with Manchester City losing Rodri for the foreseeable for the rest of the season, he might come back right at the end if he's fortunate in time, makes a good recovery. But I just fear that City might just come sniffing it just for the sake of it to bring him in and spite us because they know how much we've been trying to get him. But I would love it if he signed for us. But again, it's the idea of will he really want to come if he potentially has his head turned by false promises again, or will he just be completely blasé to the fact that Sociedad is basically saying, "Oh, look at the mountains with this PowerPoint," and he'll actually sign for Liverpool and actually become a top European talent. But no, he already is one. But for me, I think with Kökçü, I think he's an excellent player. He's a bit similar to like Gravenberch, as you said. But my only concern with that, with how good he could be, is would it be a Gerrard and Lampard thing for the England team? Like, would they complement each other or would they contradict each other and then potentially ruin a system? Obviously, with the right scouts, they would probably be able to figure that out and then sign him if they was to complement each other or not if he wasn't. But for me, I like Edison from Atalanta. I think he's a little bit older, a little bit more experienced, and it's always good to have a Brazilian in your midfield. But yeah, no, he's a bit tall, he's a bit older. I think he's a bit more robust rather than a creative box to box. I think he's got a bit more about him to not be afraid to go in for a challenge. I think he's a bit cheaper than Zubomendi as well. But yeah, no, I wouldn't say no to him or Zubomendi, really.
Okay, cool. And then, whilst we've spoken about incomings, we are going to have to touch on one right back who I'm still not convinced is going anywhere. But Trent Alexander-Arnold has apparently, again, come in from court offside. Liverpool have identified 3 players to replace Trent if he were to leave, and that is Jeremy Frimpong, who is extremely successful over at Bayern Leverkusen. I think he's a wonderful, wonderful player. Monaco's Vanderson and Fiorentina's Michael Coyote. And whilst none of them hold any light to our Trent Alexander-Arnold, if the worst was to happen, who's on top of your list?
So I'd say the same as you as a starting point, that I think I'm hopeful and still thinking that it's going to happen, that he's going to sign his new contract. So I'm hoping it won't come to it. But if it was to come to it, for me, I think Frimpong is, like you touched on, a really kind of good option down that right-hand side in terms of potential. I think the other two, in terms of the other two, I'm not really too sure that they are kind of players, if I'm honest. One of them's a bit young and a bit raw. The other one more kind of defensive minded than in terms of like what we normally have from our fullback. So I'm not sure, but I think Frimpong in terms of that, yes, in terms of the quality on the ball, in terms of the passing, you're never going to find another right back who's got the same passing ability. So that already goes out the window. Defensively, he is quite solid. He can switch off at times and almost be caught out at times, but that's probably being young and a little bit inexperienced in some areas. But in terms of that energy and attacking ability down the right-hand side, to still be able to offer us that alongside, whether it's Salah and Szoboszlai or anybody else who's down that right-hand side, I think it would be a good option for us. So again, if it did come to it and it was a necessary thing we had to think about in the future, I think he's a good option.
I think he's the only one who could come in, and I don't think any fan would actually forgive. Although, to be fair, Michael did say at the top of the show, let him go if he wishes to go to Real Madrid, and our ever faithful Jay, who's just gone, agreed with him. For me, I think it's completely unforgivable. I don't think let him go if he wishes to go. I think you do everything and throw a house at him and a car and every other thing that he could possibly want, in the world. Give his future kids houses and cars. Write that into his contract. His grandkids, like houses and mansions and cars as well, because I think Liverpool have to do everything they can in their power to prevent him from leaving, especially on a free. But I think Frimpong is perhaps the only one who could come in, Matt, and you could resemble some forgiveness. But again, that's looking at 70, 80 million. Trent's going to go on a free, so that's going to take a massive hit.
Yeah, it is a massive financial blow. But I think Jeremy Frimpong is the more household name per se of the three of those, and I think seeing him win so many trophies just last season with Bayer Leverkusen speaks for itself as well. Obviously, it's a very different system that they will have been playing to us, so it would be a little bit more learning in comparison to just fitting in naturally. I know he plays quite a bit more forward as well. I don't know if it's specifically like the passing range that he has, but it's more of a getting into the far forward wings where Mo would normally be before he cuts in, or even getting into the box and getting some tap-ins. But I think having the likes of Van Dijk and Gravenberch already in the team with the international duties and for the Netherlands, I think that would be a good thing to have, because they'll be able to help him understand the system more. Obviously, chatting him up on international duty as well, trying to convince him to come. Yeah, it's really good. But in regards to the other two, I don't really think they're too much more of a household name. But then again, so was Andy Robertson when we signed him, and he ended up being the best in the world at one point. But I think in regards to Trent leaving, I think it will be very hard to forgive him for that. But you've also got to shine the light on FSG and them keeping their hands in the pockets rather than offering him anything. And it's partly on them as well. But yeah, I have that little niggle of hope that he will be staying, but you just got to hope FSG decide to put an offer on the table for him.
Yeah, I mean, if they don't, I think a lot of people are very grey when it comes to FSG, and I think that would convert a lot of people to FSG out if they would let even one of those potential three go, let alone all three. Here's one for you. If you might actually slot in well for FSG Liverpool 67, because not only are you going to let Trent go to bring in Koundé, you're also going to let Diaz go. FSG would love you with the wage structure. So maybe put in for an application for a sporting director as well. Any final thoughts, guys, for you for the rest of this week, apart from please, let's just get this week over and done with, bring on Chelsea to Anfield, and let's get the real football underway. Dylan?
Yeah, I think just get everyone back fit. Hopefully everyone, even the players that do have games coming up, hopefully they get a bit of form and a bit of they enjoy the kind of games that they've got coming up. But equally, let's hope that they only get 60 minutes, 70 minutes and get taken off for a bit of a rest towards the end of their games and come back and have a good game for us at the weekend. So the more players we can have with less minutes, the better for us, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you've hit the nail on the head. Get the rhythm going and hook them. Get them off as soon as possible. Matt, it was your first ever stream. Any final thoughts?
Yeah, I just wanted to give a shout out to Joel Matip and wish him a happy retirement.
Definitely.
Yeah, great news. Yeah, good news that was, to be fair, because he, like Jurgen, went out on a complete high. So yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I'm glad that you said that.
He was absolutely brilliant for us. He had a great partnership with Van Dijk. My favourite moment of him was probably the when he went forward and he did his mazy run, and then he actually managed to get a goal. Yeah, that was extraordinary. That was justified after all those years of going forward and it not going to nothing tested and run back, and it's finally paid off. But yeah, no, I wish him the happiest of retirement. But hopefully he's available to come back if we need him. For whatever reason, as the backup centre back.
Hopefully, he won't have to come back. Hopefully, he won't have to.
Yeah.
Who do you think, very quickly, because I often have this debate internally, who do you think was the best Bosman signing for Liverpool, James Milner or Joel Matip?
So, for me, it would probably. It's hard to argue against Joel in terms of what he gave us, in terms of that centre back partnership he had with Virgil, and always willing to just step in no matter what game it was, whether he was dropped for a league game and played the cup games, he always did well in whichever games he was in. So other than the kind of injuries in and out, it's hard to argue against him. But equally, James Milner came in and the experience he just gave to the squad at the time as well, I think was exactly what was needed in terms of him, Henderson, the kind of older heads in the kind of younger-ish changing room at the time. So I think looking at the development of that team in that period, it probably would have to be James Milner.
Okay, Matt.
I think for me it is ridiculously tight, but I think I'm going to go with Dylan and say James Milner, simply because of the fact that he was able to play anywhere on the pitch. He was happy to do a shift anywhere, left back, centre mid. He would probably even go in goal if you asked him to. He brought those years of experience, and he was a appropriate leader as well. He was able to be the wingman to Henderson and step up when he needed to for that leader on the pitch, which did help us go to reach so many finals, win so many trophies with Jurgen Klopp at the helm as well. So I'd say for me Milner. Also shout out to Milner with the cross for Lovren's header against Borussia Dortmund in his Klopp's first Europa League quarter-final for us.
Yeah, that was class. I love that. That was, again, the first of many, many comebacks. But yeah, the fact it was Lovren who got it after coming under so much scrutiny for many, many years, that must have been an absolute, shining cap for him as well. Happy memories, happy times, and hopefully we'll have many, many more to come under Arne Slot. Thank you all for joining us. We've had 3,000 of you tune in tonight on a Saturday night when the internationals are on. So we expect double, maybe triple next time when we're doing the match preview for Chelsea here next Saturday. But thank you all for joining us, and thank you to Dylan and Matt for joining me as well. So thank you all. And as always, God bless, and up the Reds.